These people are like, if you make one mistake at all, you can't do anything ever again. So which is why they don't deny anyone any money anywhere, anytime, right? The government just keeps printing it and handing it out hand over fist because it's much easier than saying no. Like if you really have a good reputation, you want to stand by it and fight for the work you're doing, why don't you bring out your name? Why are you proceeding pseudo-anonymously if you're such heroes doing such heroic work? Public servants, won't your work stand up for itself? So this judge is going to protect the integrity of USAID bureaucrats. Can you believe that? Federal court. You don't talk mean about them. Wow. A federal judge bringing back USAID. Judge Chuang, he is writing out of the District of Maryland in the lawsuit brought by the J-Does against Elon and DOGE and Trump, saying that everything that Elon and DOGE has done is invalid and must be reversed. This is from one judge who is saying that he is now in charge of the executive branch, essentially, and he gives us an explanation as to why. Now, we'll add him to the list of impeachment judges who are clearly overstepping their prerogative to try to issue an injunction against the executive branch to stop the executive branch from doing the will of the American people. And there is enough momentum now that Congress people are introducing articles of impeachment against his colleague in another district in the District of Columbia called Judge Boasberg to impeach him. So we'll see if that comes next for this judge. But let me share with you what he wrote coming out against Elon, DOGE, and the American people who elected these folks. Here's what the judge wrote. Since it was established when Trump took office in January, DOGE has sent teams of personnel to numerous federal departments and agencies, taking control of their computer systems, and in many instances, taken the lead in terminating numerous contracts and employees. And every time we read these, it's almost enjoyable. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. They did do that. That was awesome. Now, in the case of the United States USAID, DOGE and its leader, Elon Musk, writes this judge, have also played a leading role in actions taken to shut it down and to dismantle the agency, which have included permanently closing its headquarters, taking down its website, engaging in mass terminations of grants, personnel, and more. I know, it's great. We were here. It was fun. A group of USAID personnel are now suing, saying this is unconstitutional because, of course, these are civil servants who are doing, public good around the world. And so they have to sue you, the American people who have voted to say, we don't want you doing this anymore and we can't afford it, frankly. And you are sinking the entire ship. So you have to get off the boat now or else we all drown. They're such good people that they're suing us to get their jobs back. Isn't that nice of them? What a bunch of good people. So specifically, and I don't care what they're doing, AIDS doctors or health council or whatever it is, who make up their fake names. Specifically, J-Does 1 through 26 are currently or recently terminated losers, have filed a civil action against Elon Musk in his official capacity and DOGE and more. They cite Article 2, Section 2, and the constitutional principles of separation of powers and the appointments clause, right? Saying Elon is exercising too much power, so he should be appointed to an office. And since that office doesn't exist, the appointments clause, which governs appointments, should apply to him, but it doesn't apply to non-offices. These fired USAID grifters have now filed a motion for a preliminary injunction, which is fully briefed, and the court now finds that Trump and Elon's unilateral actions to shut down USAID likely violated the Constitution, and the motion is granted in part and denied in part. On November 12th, 2024, President-elect Trump, incredible, announced that the great Elon Musk, working with Vivek, will lead DOGE, and they're going to clean up the government. Then he issued an executive order on January 20th, establishing DOGE. DOGE sent teams of DOGE people with 4 employees to multiple agencies around the government. Then Trump identified Musk as the leader of DOGE, held press conferences, was on the Sean Hannity show. Trump signed an order creating DOGE, right? So he's going through all of his public statements. I've created DOGE, you've heard of it, which is headed by Elon Musk, right? These are Trump's own words. They're saying Elon's in control. So in discussing Musk's role, Trump then stated that after he signed an executive order, they're getting the things done. Elon's going hog wild, just cleaning up all this grift. So then on January 20th, DOGE team members moved into the OPM. They start canceling contracts. On January 24th, they said, hey, 420 million of impending contracts have just been evaporated. They take numerous actions, the judge writes, without any apparent advanced approval by agency leadership. Okay, that is nonsense. DOGE has been advising. The agencies themselves have been approving these things. And we saw this chain of documentation emerge back during other cases, especially with Judge Amir Ali, that judge from Ontario, who tried to say that DOGE was making the decisions and canceling in that case when they didn't do that at all. In fact, Marco Rubio specifically read through every single contract. He was up all night long, drinking water all night. Cancel, 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 constantly. It was amazing. Thank you, Marco Rubio. We love Marco. So it's his agency, the Department of State, that canceled them. And they have the documents. They filed them in a companion case that we read here 2 weeks ago. Political appointees were reportedly caught off guard when on February 7th, DOGE executed cuts to billions of dollars of funding to National Institutes of Health. People who are responsible for COVID, in my opinion. After DOGE and their team members reportedly terminated personnel at the Department of Ag, Department of Energy, Nuclear National Security, then they had to rescind some people and more. Like, they're so animated about that. You know, he had to fire people and hire them back. Like, so what? That's great. That happens all the time. Okay, you're going to make mistakes when you're firing 10,000 people. So as long as they have value, they can come on back. But elsewise, they're gone. It's pretty clear. Now, similarly, at the cabinet meeting, Musk also admitted that they fired and they mistakenly canceled funding for Ebola. They turned it back on. Judge, relax. These people are like, if you make one mistake at all, you can't do anything ever again. So, which is why they don't deny anyone any money anywhere, anytime, right? The government just keeps printing it and handing it out hand over fist because it's much easier than saying no. On February 20th, DOGE reportedly put a $1 spending limit on government credit cards. Yeah, good luck buying anything with that. Not even a pack of gum after Biden got done with our economy. So this action predated executive orders, and Trump, even after that email went out saying, you better respond, then Musk posted on X. Trump said, you got to get more aggressive. Then another email was sent. Respond. What are the 5 things you did? And so the judge is so mad. On January 20th, in addition to establishing DOGE, Trump also signed another executive order, and that was pausing USAID money. Then Rubio issued an order, and then all these people sued. Then on January 27th, DOGE went in. They were asking about contracts, and they could see and delete emails on behalf of every USAID user. Okay, so they got root access to all the systems. They're like, what were you doing here? Oh, yeah, trans festivals in the Congo. Great. This is contracts for? No, you're done. On Thursday, White House officials, January 30th, they learned that some other people had been accessing the payment systems, right? Everybody was going into the portal like, give me my money. I want it now. Then they began freezing the funds. It's incredible. Amazing work, everybody who was involved in all of this. By Sunday, 2,000 email accounts had been deactivated, including the email accounts of these plaintiffs, these whiny grifters called J-Doe 5 and 6 and 3. Others resigned. After midnight, Musk hosted a broadcast. He says, yep, USAID, that he would shut it down, right? And they're saying, well, you can't shut it down. He further stated, so to be clear, in shutting down, we're in the process of shutting down USAID, right? So Elon went on saying, he can't shut it down. Elon sounds like he's in charge. He's talking like he's in charge. Trump is talking like Elon's in charge. Then in February, USAID dumped 606 employees, put them on paid leave, sent a letter to Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, said, guess what? We're canceling even more. That's your notice, Senate. Enjoy. Then the following day, 1,400 more gone, administrative leave. Then others like Musk posted pictures of the building and the sign coming down. And we took great joy in that. Kamala Harris was right about that. There is joy. That same day, in American other cases, the court issued another TRO and this building's gone, right? Border Patrol just moved in. So President Trump stated the Future Investment Initiative at another event. Trump said, yeah, we're continuing to go. We're cutting. Then there were other announcements that came out. Then there were rifts. And so it was just like a bloodbath, right? They're all sitting there. Oh, we're getting cut all over the place. So the plaintiffs are 26 current or former employees who want their grift to continue. Beginning on February 2nd, multiple plaintiffs lost all access to their systems. Other plaintiffs who posted about it freaked out. They said, we're losing everything. We got no way to pay bills. Our internet's going to get shut down, our cell phones. And we're in dangerous situations. On administrative leave. Some plaintiffs expressed concerns about this. And then Musk made disparaging comments. He said, these people are grifting losers, okay? And they're Democrat operatives who have been stealing money from the American people for their own personal gain. How dare he say that about these public servants? We're suing you. In the motion, they sought a narrow emergency relief. The judge is going to go through. He's going to say they've got standing, right? We've talked about this before. Why are they even suing? Why can this lawsuit even survive? The contracts were canceled. They want the contracts to be back on. Their relationship with the federal government is terminated. If they have a contract problem, they should file it in the Court of Federal Claims. They've been terminated. Here, they argue that DOGE having access to their personal information is not an injury, and there's no other things that you can address here. And the judge says, well, of course there's an injury. They were terminated. Others were stationed in high-risk areas, and these are injuries. And so they satisfy that. And you guys did it, right? We can trace it back to Trump and the federal government. DOGE did it. They went in, they demanded access to classified systems. DOGE had complete control over all of it. And since you did it, the record supports that the USAID officials were not actually independent actors. And even if they were, they would just do whatever Elon or Musk wanted them to do, right? So Trump installed his people, and Trump is acknowledging that Elon is doing these things. And so it's traceable to Trump. So I can redress this so they have standing. Here, the relief includes stopping Trump from canceling these folks. And so they satisfy that. Now, then we get to the appointments clause. They say defendants have not disputed that Musk has been duly appointed either as a principal or inferior officer. They say that Musk is the de facto U.S. administrator, according to these fired people. But But Musk was not appointed or went through Senate confirmation. And they say he should have been because he's acting as an officer. Here's why. Musk is exercising significant authority, saying that they exercise significant authority. And of course, we know, right? It's advising to Rubio. Rubio is exercising the authority. They're upset that Elon is providing Rubio with the data, but Rubio made the decision and he's empowered to do that. But the present record does not support the conclusion that USAID officials made those decisions. No, it looks like other people actually made the decisions, in this case, Elon and more. In fact, Musk specifically stated on X that it was time for it to die, talking about USAID. We're shutting it down. So it sounds like Elon was really the puppet master controlling all of these things. And that is significant authority. Going through a bunch of case law where there is no regulatory requirement to shut down an agency. The court says if you shut down an agency, ordering the permanent closure of an agency headquarters, right? So I guess that's it. I was asking, well, the agency's not shut down officially. Like there are still USAID. There's still people and contracts that are getting money. So the court therefore finds that the action of closing the headquarters, because the agency is not closed. So if the judge were to come and say, you can't close this agency, only Congress can. But they didn't close the agency. It's still there. They're still writing checks. You want them to cut those too? They can. It's not closed. We kind of wish it were. I do wish it was closed. Why we have to keep it open is, I think, for legal reasons, because of Congress and because of precedent. They don't want to open that can of worms just yet. But the headquarters, this judge says, oh, okay, because they shut the building. So that requires an officer of the United States, somebody who is Senate confirmed, to do it. So Musk, because he closed the office and because he's tweeting about it, he should be an officer. He's not an officer, and he has no formal authority to do any of this, but he did exert actual authority, right, to do it. He's got no formal legal authority, but he's doing an end run around the appointments clause. If a president could escape appointments clause scrutiny by having advisors go beyond the traditional role of White House advisors who communicate with agency heads to instead exercise significant authority throughout the government, the appointments clause would be reduced to nothing more than a technical formality. It's not true at all. It's the same thing as a chief of staff. Or what about a wife advising the president? Does the wife who gives the president advice and does things like when Hillary Clinton was doing her little healthcare nonsense, talking to everybody about that crap, does she need to be appointed or what? Everybody who closes a government building needs to be appointed as an officer? No, it's ridiculous. Obviously, this judge is trying to find an excerpt that will allow him to thread the needle here. Here, the issue is about DOGE, and Elon is making these decisions, but it's not, right? Rubio signed the orders and it all came down through the official chain of command. They say DOGE is more akin to independent counsel in the Donziger case, and Musk is the de facto administrator. And so his public statements, along with Trump's statements, say that he's really in charge of this whole thing. And the record supports the conclusion that Musk, without having been appointed as an officer, exercised significant authority. And so they're going to win on the appointments clause claim, and we don't need to address the other stuff, saying that they eliminated USAID. Elon said, USAID is a criminal organization. It's time for it to die. Then they physically closed the headquarters. They shut down key functions of the agency. The plaques were removed. Okay, that's how mad this judge is. They removed the plaques from the building. Permanently closed. Employees no longer permitted to enter. The name of the agency was removed from the facade, and they're reconfiguring the space for Border Patrol. In addition to the physical shutdown, the website's down. 2,000 emails are down, and more. In the early hours these activities were occurring, Musk was on a live stream. He said, well, USAID is just a ball of worms. It's got to go. It's beyond repair. Everyone agreed it should be shut down, but it has not been shut down. It's still open, and it's been reduced, but he calls it the dismantling, and it's sidelining almost its entire workforce. Check it out. It's amazing. 2,100 employees on leave, another 2,100 who could have been placed on leave, and more. Days, reductions, riff here, more notices. People getting let go all over the place. And as stated by Morocco, nearly 800 contracts have been terminated, which includes some of these people as well. The shutdown was a pause, and nearly $68 billion have been saved. And as a result of these, USAID appears to be unable to perform its core function as a basic governmental agency. J. Doe has stated in her declaration, so this person suing, said that the payment system has not been accessible or functional, and payments for completed work are not being made. And they had access to classified systems, and so the judge is reading all of it. And finally, it's likely that USAID is no longer able to perform certain statutorily required activities, saying you have to do certain things, and Musk has talked about elimination, and so I can conclude that based on all of that, that USAID has been effectively eliminated, right? So the agency is not shut down. It's not. They're still making payments. Rubio, to his chagrin, like they just paid the National Institutes for Democracy or whatever hack agency that was. Like, they're still paying, but the judge says, well, effectively it's been eliminated, so therefore now I'm going to make up what has happened so I can rule against you. So then under the legal standard, he says the president only has certain power. The court considers whether Congress has authorized this course of conduct. Did Congress authorize this to be dismantled? dismantled, saying Congress has made clear that they want USAID to be an independent agency. That's illegal, okay? There are no independent agencies. They exist under a branch of government. So this judge should read the Constitution. It was first created by an executive order in 1961. Yeah, by JFK, which means we can undo it by executive order. Congress funded it. Congress required the president to submit to Congress a reorganization plan, right? And Congress, well, you can only make these changes if we approve it. No, that is asking you to participate in the execution of the law. That's not your role. You're the legislature, not the executive branch. So Congress has not granted the president direct authority to reorganize any of this. Doesn't matter. And, he doesn't even want to get into that. He's going to break it up into separation of powers and then basically say that they can all commingle their powers and that the executive branch is bound by congressional statute, not even by the Constitution. The Constitution usurps congressional statute. They say also by asserting constitutional authority for dismantling USAID, they say it's Article 2 power. They say foreign affairs power and much more. But the case law here, they say, doesn't necessarily apply. The primary actions here are about the closure of the headquarters. So it's about the workforce. It's not about foreign policy, says the judge. It's about domestic employment. This is not conduct of foreign policy or foreign governments. This is a local business decision, which he's basically admitting that it's a domestic issue, which should be brought in the Court of Federal Claims. Now, although such functions necessarily have some connection to foreign policy because of, it's USAID, under their theory, Trump would have unilateral policy power to do whatever he wants and cancel everything and more. And so all this being said, trying to dismantle USAID is against the separation of powers, saying, I guess he's encroaching on Congress, even though JFK made it in the executive branch. So there will be irreparable harm. These people are all crying foul. We're going to lose everything. We're all going to die if we don't get our federal government grift continuing to help fund our public service. There's going to be irreparable harm, reputational harms, okay? They're going to be offended. J. Doe 22 is going to have reputational harm. In my opinion, these people who consider their reputations to be valuable are dismantling it right now, right? Like as soon as we find out who these folks were, first of all, I think they're cowards for proceeding pseudo-anonymously. Like if you really have a good reputation, you want to stand by it and fight for the work you're doing, why don't you bring out your name? Why are you proceeding pseudo-anonymously if you're such heroes doing such heroic work? Public servants. Won't your work stand up for itself? But disparaging public statements about USAID. And if USAID was doing any good at all, really am caring less and less by the day because all of these other people are such whiny, pathetic babies who are suing to go against the will of the American people who've said, we cannot support you anymore. You're too fat to be on this boat. You have to step off. You're going to kill us all. They say, I'm not moving anywhere. I'm on this boat. There's a port right here. Get off. No, I'm not going. We're all going to die. They don't care. And they're suing now because they care about America. So generally, a claim that an employee's reputation would be damaged is not enough. But in other cases, the Supreme Court recognized where there could be a stigma about those living with HIV. We had the AIDS doctors who, of course, were in here. Yeah. So it could be that this is offensive to them because Musk called them evil, right? And people who have good reputations, who are fighting for causes they believe in, I think would proceed under their own name if they were honorable people of integrity. Evil hides in the darkness and in the shadows and sues the people who have been funding their crap for years. The next day, Musk also publicly stated in a lengthy discussion that the USAID was an apple with a worm in it. But it's even worse. No, it's not an apple with a worm in it, okay? It's just a ball of worms. It's hopeless. It's beyond repair. You've got to get rid of the whole thing. And I'll tell you what, I trust Elon much more than Jane Does who are filing pseudo-anonymous lawsuits, saying you basically got to get rid of the whole thing. He also said USAID had been engaged in anti-American activity. I think that's absolutely true. We've already seen that. Where such a prominent member of the executive branch publicly described their place of employment in a brazen way that characterizes its agency, not only in misconduct, but as a criminal enterprise from top to bottom, right? This judge is like, Elon is so mean to these pathetic baby cowards who are suing that it's casting doubt on the integrity of those who worked there. So this judge is going to protect the integrity of USAID bureaucrats. Can you believe that? Federal court. You don't talk mean about them. Wow. At a minimum, they likely diminish the value of the experience of working at USAID in the eyes of future employers. Yeah, I hope they never get hired again, honestly. With lasting impact because of such personnel necessarily rely on their experience, any final termination might impact them. Now, this reputational injury does not appear to be merely speculative. Just think about this in your position, okay? Where's a federal judge going to come out and fight for you if you get fired from your job and your reputation? It's ridiculous. They're such coddled, pathetic babies that they have to sue and demand employment and can't even stand behind their own names after however many decades they've been here. Finally, they've argued that the disclosure of sensitive information will cause irreparable harm. Here, they're concerned about public disclosure of their names. And and they're worried about their security. Yeah, I know. We know. They're always worried about their security. Nobody's going to cause any violence to them, and nobody's advocating for that. We want transparency. We want to know what they've done. So here they say DOGE members have had a lack of respect for security clearance requirements and more. And so in balancing the equities, we have to grant this. So they write, as to the injunction, we've got a couple orders and rulings. In conclusion, the court finds that Trump's actions to shut down USAID on an accelerated basis, including its apparent decision to permanently close the headquarters without the approval of a duly appointed USAID officer, so it's like a technical thing, likely violated the Constitution in multiple ways, and that these actions harmed not only plaintiffs, but also the public interest and deprived the public's elected representatives of Congress from advising on when and how to close this. And so a separate order will issue, but the preliminary injunction will be granted in part and denied in part, signed by hack Democrat Judge Theodore Chuang. And he, of course, was appointed by Obama. Defendants are enjoined as follows, says Trump and Marco and USAID shall reinstate access to email, payment, and everything, including the contractors, within 7 days of this order. All right. So everybody has to get rehired from this judge. Says they shall not disclose outside of USAID any personal information, says that they shall not take any action related to reductions in force, employee terminations, terminations of contracts or grants. Everything is coming back. Don't take any action without the express authorization of a USAID official. Within 14 days, written compliance that they are back in their building. Okay. Put the sign back on. Amazing. Put the sign back up. Reoccupy the headquarters. Unless you can ratify the decision to permanently close it with the acting administrator of USAID. So it's like, I guess the judge just wants someone else to check a box. This is so pathetic. And pursuant to 65C, an injunction bond, $100. It's going to cost, I don't know, how many millions of dollars to bring back all these government grifters and all these contractors who are just more and more useless by the day. I think every single one of them, unless they disavow. You can come out, you say, look, I was USAID, but I disavow USAID. I'm a good person. I disavow all of this and I accept the will of the American people. There may be an opportunity for reunification with those individuals, but the people who are still standing behind USAID and suing all of us because they're entitled to jobs and money and our taxpayer dollars indefinitely without any oversight or recourse at all, well, they're dead to us or to me. So you can see it says this is the judge, Theodore Chuang, now dropping that one, another blue Democrat, taking control of the executive branch. That judge is the president now.